Okay, great, right. So, what is the agenda for today? Today we'll be talking about the waiting strategies, okay? The timeouts and everything which is related to the wait outs, okay? In Playwright. So, we're going to talk about different timeouts or waiting strategies which Playwright has, okay? We have already seen couple of them, but I wanted to have a separate session on this, and we will start from very scratch and try to understand everything, okay? So, let's start. Again, let's open the website first. Now, here, right, let me also open my code. The first place to start with the to set the timing and all, right, and to understand where the timing information goes and what are different types of timing. Let's first go to the conf file. Okay, this is your entry point for the playwright, right? Conf file. Now, what we'll do is we'll go towards the conf file first here. Go to the API. We'll go to the switches test config, full context config, and here we have something called global timeout. Okay, let's first click this, right? Global timeout. This is one thing. What we have more is we can see. Can I see timeout? Right. This is the another timeout. Let's open it here. Timeout. Do we have another thing here? Timeout. Global timeout. I think these are the only two things coming from here. We have other timeouts in different places, but let's see. Okay, so and there is something. Okay, let me try to write, right. So there are three places. Okay, there are two places I should say where you can set some timings. One is a config file, right? The config file which we know, right? Playwright config.ts. Now the other important file where the timings can be set around. I mean, what timings around what, right? We'll talk about, but let's understand the places where they can be set. That would be your spec file. Okay, the spec file where you create your test cases, right? What are different types of timing which we should be knowing about? Let's write it about timing types, right? If you look at a test case, right? If you look at a test case which has a certain boundary to run, right? So it is running in certain boundaries here. So maybe you have written 100 lines of code here, right? To write, right? Now, what happens here is that by default, Playwright has a timeout for all individual test cases, which they call it as test timeout, which describes like how much time, right, a test case can take to execute. Okay, and by default the value is 30 seconds. If your test case, right, is not able to complete within those 30 seconds, right, your test case will time out and it will throw an error saying it has timed out, it has exceeded the timing of 30 seconds. This is one of the timeouts which you should be knowing about. Okay, timeouts. Okay, and you can change this if you want, right? Now consider that you have hundreds of these test cases, hundreds or thousands of test cases, right? And now what you also want is that the entire test execution of your code, right, should not take more than 2 hours. Let's say, right, let's say you have 100 test cases and you expect that, okay, that within 2 hours you understand that everything should have been completed, right? But if it is taking and you do not want it to run, keep on running, right? Let maybe after 2 hours, let's say there is some problem with the script or there is some problem with this with the underlying infra, right? And you would not want it to keep on running for next 10 hours also, right? No, you want it to have a limit, okay, that you have started. Once you started, it should end within let's say next 3 hours, or let's say next 2 hours, right? So even that is supported in Playwright. What you can do is there is something called global timeout, which takes care of your entire test execution, right? If you see, right, these timeout, right, are just on the duration test execution duration side, right? Nothing else. They are not dealing. We are not currently dealing with finding an element and all that. No, these are the timeouts for a particular test case and for the entire test execution. Okay, test execution duration. That's it, right? So it will have no impact on your finding an element or doing on any of that, right? No, it is just that if your test case completes within this time, great. If they do not, it will throw an error. So this is for individual test cases, which is by default the case of 30 seconds. And there's a global timeout, which you can set, right? Now, if you look at the global timeout, this global timeout setting, right, goes under the config file. Here, there's a parameter called global timeout. I don't remember the default value. Let's check this. Okay, if you see, right, okay, zero timeout default disables this, which is a default. Okay, so there is a default, which is maximum time in milliseconds the whole test suite can run. Zero timeout disables this behavior, useful on CI. Okay, so what it's saying is, like, there is a property called global timeout in config. By default, it is set to 0. And if it is set to 0, it does not mean that it will take only 0 seconds. No, the way it is read by Playwright, it says that you have disabled this. You have disabled the setting, so now there is no restriction on the time, on the duration of the execution. Even if it takes 12 hours, great, right? So the default value for global timeout is 0 seconds, right? Which means it will keep running. It will keep running, right? But let's say you want to change that behavior, right? What you can do is, let's say we expect it to be having we want it to run in just 1 hour, right? So the timeout which you have to give here is in milliseconds. Okay, milliseconds. So 1 second has 1000 milliseconds. So I wanted it to run for, let's say, 60 minutes, right? Which is your 1 hour. 1 hour equals to this, right? And 60 minutes means what? Your 60 into 60 seconds, which becomes your 3600 seconds. And for every second, right, you have to give the parameter unit in milliseconds, right? So it will be 36 into 100 into 1000. That will tell you about the millisecond part, right? And it is equivalent to 1 hour, right? If you want to change it to, let's say, 10 hours, what you have to do is multiply it with 10. Getting it? So you can do it this way. So this is a setting again, right, which you can apply, and it can be placed. It can exist in the place, so that you might want to save some resources on the infra side. Okay, maybe by mistake it is kept running, right, and it is consuming the resources of your, let's say, AWS infra where the execution is happening. You would like to save those resources. So this is a setting which you can apply. Coming out to the test timeout, right? Okay, let me just show you also, right? So if you go here in this part, right, in the config file, what you can do is just type global timeout, right? And here by default, let's read about it. It says maximum time in a millisecond, the whole should zero timeout, right? Disables this behavior. So if you put the 0 here, right, it is something like this, that it is disabled, which is already the case, with the default case. Even if you don't write this line, it is existing there, right? Now I want to change it. What I will do is, it has to give the time in milliseconds. I want it to run for what we say, uh, what I said, into 1 hour, right? So 3600 into 1000, right? So this is what we have. You can write it like this, or you can just simply write it like this: 36 0. I hope I'm putting all my zeros right, whatever the zeros are, right? So you can place it like this, but remember, this is a millisecond setting. Okay, this is one thing. And if it surpasses this time, it will throw timeout error, right, on the screen. Okay, great. So this is one type of setting. Second type of setting, right, which is your timeouts, right? Timeout for each test in milliseconds, default to 30 seconds, right? Again, this setting can also be applied, right, in this config file only. Okay, this setting of 30 seconds, this is the default value. Okay, default value. Now let's say you wanted to have all the test cases run. See, this is the default thing, right? That every test case can maximum take 30 seconds to execute, 0 to 30 seconds. If it surpasses this time, right, it will throw timeout error. That is what the meaning is. So even if you can, how do you can set it? You can say timeout, and you can set 30 seconds, right? So 30 seconds means 30 into 1000. Even if you don't set it, it is by default there. Okay. And now let's say that you think that 30 seconds is not sufficient for any of your test case, and you would like to increase it. So what you should do is go to the config file, timeout, put, let's say, 40 seconds here, right? Now it will work for 40 seconds. So it will not time out until 40 seconds is surpassed for a single test case, right? So, okay. Why should you apply this setting in the global file? Because you will want to run this set, you want to apply the setting to the entire suite, right? So if that is the intention, if you want all the test cases to have this 40 seconds time, then you should apply in the config file, and it will make sure that it gets applied to all the test cases which are getting executed. Okay, so these are the two settings available in the config file, but these are more from the duration side, not on the locators or on all the data side, right? Now, if you see, right, global timeout is something which will always exist here only, okay, in this config file. But this timeout part, right, can also, let's say you do, let's say you have set this here, or let's say you have not set it here. In Playwright, you are given an option to set the timing of individual test cases also, right? Let's say I want this test case to have maximum duration of 50 seconds. Let's say this test case I want to have it for 30 seconds, or let's say 25 seconds, right? Right, you do not want to rely on 30 seconds, you want to change these settings, right, for individual test cases. So that is also possible. For doing that, you will have to go into the spec file and change it over there. How? Let's see. So these are timeouts at global part. We are done with it. If we open the test cases, let's open the test case. Where does the test case go? In the Playwright test, right? If you see test.set timeout, right, changes the timeout for the test. Zero means no timeout. Learn more about various timeouts. Timeout for the currently running test case is available through testinfo.timeout. Okay. If you see, right, let's say you want a specific test case, your original test case, and you want to change the time of that from default 30 seconds to something else, right? And you wanted it for a single test case only, right? What you have to do is you will have to go here into the individual test case and set this time using this one. Let's go there. So we just saw about the global timeout, right? Let us also see the timeout. You see this timeout, right? This is the global setting for all the test cases. So if you see it by default, it is by default. Okay, not this man. Timeout. Timeout is the number. Timeout for each individual default 30 seconds, right? So let's say I want to change it to 40 seconds. So yeah, you can do it this way, right? And now all the test cases will be running with 40 seconds time frame. Okay, individually. Now let's say I don't want this to be applied on all test cases. I want it individually. So what you can do is go to your test case. This is a test case, right? And we have hundreds of test cases. Let's say here, right? For one of the test case, I want to just change this. So if you look at the signature of the test case, right? A test case over here, right, does not allow you to provide it in the signature part of it, right? So let me give a name, test case 26. We'll say async, and we'll provide page here, right? And we'll say, oh, not page. We're not interested here. What we do is test dot set timeout. Okay. Here timeout in milliseconds. Change the timeout of the test. Zero means no timeout. Let's say, right. If you want to skip that, that there should not be any boundaries for a test case execution. It can take as much time as it needs, right? So you have to do what? Just set it to zero. Okay, just set it to zero. This will mean that there is no timeline for this test case to execute. It can take even 1 hour or even 5 hours, right, to run. But let's say you want to control that thing, right? Or you want to change the default behavior of it. So you'll do what? Come here and change it to, let's say, 40 seconds. 40 seconds is 40,000 milliseconds, right? Great. And this should be the first line here, right? So that this can take effect. Okay. But these are again on the test execution duration side. Okay. It has no impact on finding the element like those which we have in Selenium, like implicit, explicit, and fluent wait, right? No, these are not those timeouts. These are just on the duration side. Okay. So how do you apply it? You apply it like this, right? So we'll go here. So this timeout, right? This is the config level in the spec side, right? You will go in the individual test case. You go to the individual test case, and over here you will go and say test dot set timeout, and you can give a number, right? 120 seconds, whatever it is, right? Okay. Now there is one important thing to understand in this case also, right? When you say that a test case will take 120 seconds to run, so what exactly is included as part of the timing, right? So we are saying that there is a time duration that that this test case will take 120 seconds max to run. But what exactly is a part of this execution, right? It contains three or four things, okay, inside this time itself, right? One is the test case itself, that particular test case. This test case should complete here, but there are other things which are also included in this time frame. What are those? Before each. We have learned the before each hook, right? So if I so what is happening is before each plus the test case to run, whatever steps you have mentioned, right? And the fixture setup, right? Let's say you wanted to you are using page here, right? You're using page here. So to set up a page for the test case, Playwright takes some time, right? It takes that much time, right? So that time is also included in these seconds, right? Let us default to 30 seconds, right? So what happens here is whatever code you've written in the before each, whatever code you've written in test, plus whatever time this fixture step setup takes, right? To set up that fixture for you, right? Including all this time, this is the maximum time a test case can take, okay, to run, right? If it, let's say this takes 10 seconds, let's say this takes 15 seconds, and this takes 6 seconds, right? You are taking how much time? 25, 31, right? Since it took 31 seconds, right? As soon as this window breached, right, it will throw an error, timeout error, okay, right? So you might come and say, okay, Akhil, test case was taking only 50 seconds. No, which is correct, right? But these are also things, right, which are included as part of this execution in calculation of the time. Okay, so you should be understanding that part. You might be saying, Akhil, I am writing only a one line of code in test, right, and it is getting timeout. Why? The reason could be maybe your machine itself is slow, which could result in a slowness of the fixture setup. Or maybe let's say you have created some custom fixtures, right? Which again, if you are injecting in your test case, might increase your time depending on how well you have written the code, or what depending on how many lines of code or what exactly you're doing as part of before each, right? That can also have an impact. Okay, just to make my point clear, here, right? Here it might be telling you, does it tells you? Uh, okay, where is it? Okay, I think in the this video's timeouts. Right. So right, we have, okay, expect timeout is also there, but let's ignore it as of now. Low level timeouts, set timeout for a single action, no. Um, where is it? Set timeout for a single test case. Oh, where is it, man? Test timeout, right? Playwright test enforces the timeout of each for each test 30 seconds by default. This time spent by the test function, fixture setup, and before each hook is included in this timeout. Getting it? As I said, right? The whatever you've written in the test block, whatever time fixture setup take, and whatever time before each hook take, right, is all included in 30 seconds. If it surpasses that part, it will say timeout of 30 seconds exceeded. Okay. Now you could ask, okay, there are after each tear down of thing, right? Global run. There are other things also, right, which can be executed. Those are not included as part of this time calculation, right? Let me write, like, let's say you have a after each block, you have after all block, right? You have before all also, right? Just a second. You have a before all also. You have a before all. Also, you have global runs, right? You have global runs. You have global setup and global tear down, right? Those times are not part of this calculation. Okay, so these are not part of these. If you want to set up the time for them, you can set it up, right, separately. Okay, global setup and tear down, right, they would be included as part of the global timeout thing, right, which is this one, right? For before all, after each, and after all, right, you can set up the time individually for them in their respective cases, right? And it should work. Hey, hi Fuzula, very long time. Hope everything is fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. Getting fully, occupied with the work and load everything over there.
No worries, no worries. Good to see you, right? You're working on Playwright.
Yes, Playwright
Uh,
tool, automation.
so which language you're using? TypeScript or C Sharp? I believe you were saying C Sharp or something, right?
I was actually I was in my previous project was C sharp. Now I got into a new project that's TypeScript.
Oh, bingo, great, great. So you started, or it will take some time?
I started and I'm doing everything with the help of the cursor, AI. So it's very fast.
Ah, great, great, great. No,
Yeah.
we can learn a bit right from you about the AI part then. Great,
Yeah, I am an AI test engineer now, working
great,
on
great.
four AI projects. So yeah, maybe
No,
one day we'll have it.
great, right? We'll like to have a session from you then, Kuzula, someday.
Yeah, yeah,
After we
sure.
are done with the Playwright, right? I would, if you can explain like how you're using AI in Playwright, it could be very beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank
sure.
you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, please. Okay, great. Yes, Anand, please.
So Akhil, I have a quick question. Currently, like in my current project, so there is a lot of different libraries which get kind of loaded before a test case runs. So in this scenario, how would this timeout will that time that is taken for all the Maven dependencies to be
It depends,
loaded
right?
into the
It
Jenkins run?
depends. It depends which part that whatever you're doing, the dependency part and all that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
where you have made it as a part of which block, right? If you have made it as a block, a part of before each test and the test fixtures, then yes, it will have an impact.
Yes.
But I'm sure you would
Yes.
have not done that, right? How would that thing would be? I mean, getting interpreted in before each test or fixture step? No, you might be doing it in the global setup or the global tear down, or maybe before all or after all, right? If that is the case,
Yes,
then
yes, yes.
they have a separate
That's
timeout,
where it
right?
is.
Right. So it will not
Mhm.
have an impact. It will not have an impact on your
Okay.
individual test case. Overall
Okay.
test execution timeout, yes, there will be an impact, and it is controlled through global timeout. But if you have set this to zero, then again it has no impact. Okay, you
I,
getting this?
sorry, I got confused in the last part. So
When I'm saying
if the
when
setup
I'm
is part of global setup, if that
right,
all dependency
see
execution is
what I'm
part of
saying is
global setup.
what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying is
please.
if you have things inside these three blocks, right? Let's say, then yes, it will have an impact on test case. But if you have put those things inside, let's say global setup, before roll, after reach, or after roll, maybe, or let's say there is something extra happening, right? Then those things, right, are controlled through global timeout, right? Global timeout. Although, let me say this very clearly, right? Before all also has its own 30 seconds of timeout. After each also has its own 30 seconds of timeout. After all also has 30 seconds of timeout, right? So all of these, right, are having their own 30 seconds timeouts, right, individually. Okay. Global setup or global tear down is a script which you run, right? Like separate from your test cases. If you are doing something over there, then those can be controlled, or those individually will not have an impact on your timeouts, right? But combiningly all the things together, right, will have an impact if you have used global timeout. If it is zero, then again there is no impact, because it means you gave a free hand. Okay, you want to take 100 hours, take 100 hours, right? You're not controlling the timeouts in that case.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay, great, right? Okay, so these are the different timeouts, right, which we should be knowing from the duration perspective. Let's get to the automation related timeouts, right? And just to make my point clear on the test part also, after all, right, does it describe here that the timeout for this is different? What functions? No, it is not mentioned here. Set timeout. Let's see here. Maybe here it have it. Changes for this. Before each, let's describe block. No, it is not there. Timeouts. Here, right? So test fixtures before each are there. Additional separate timeouts of the same value is shared between fixture tear downs after each hooks after the test function is finished, right? Additional separate timeout of the same value, which is 30 seconds, is shared between fixture tear down. Okay, so fixture tear down and after each block, right? They combinedly take 30 seconds more. Okay, so what they're saying is, so when I said this, right, the this is fixture setup, right? So fixture tear down, because fixtures are created and destroyed per test case, right? Similarly, after each is also running after every test case. So these two things are separated out and they are given their own separate timeout, which is 30 seconds by default. Okay. So it's not that it has its own 30 seconds and it has its own 30 seconds. No, combiningly together, it has a time period of 30 seconds. So it should complete within those 30 seconds. But the execution part of the test case includes before each and fixture setup. Okay. So these have it has its own 30 seconds, it has its own 30 seconds. After all, before all, right, have their own timeouts, right? So if I draw it again, let me just to avoid the confusion, you can understand it like this, right? So you can set up before all, right? Let's say you have a setup like this: before all, before each, right? There's a fixture time, there's a fixture setup which is happening, there's a test case which you will be running, there's a fixture tear down, there is a after each block, and there is a after all, right? What will happen here is these three things, right, combiningly have to complete in default 30 seconds. Okay, these two things combiningly should complete in 30 seconds, and you can, and by default this can take 30 seconds, this can take 30 seconds, right, to run individually. And you can change the time of these also by going there and setting it like test dot set timeout. Are we clear with this? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So again, I suspect that you might not be using this a lot, but maybe for the test cases which are covering, let's say, an end-to-end scenario, their 30 seconds might not be sufficient for you, right? In those cases, you might have to use this set time, okay, to change the those timings. Okay, great. So let's move ahead. We're talking about the next set of timeouts. What are those? We were here, right? So again, if you wanted to learn about all the timeouts, this is the page for you, right? This is mentioned under the doc section, and here timeouts, right? Timeouts. So we have looked at the test timeout, right? Individual test cases, which is done. Test timeouts, right? That how can you set up that execution time for individual test case in a test case, right? We have seen that time using test dot that. This is one way, or doing it for a single test case. You can do it through set timeout, right? Now, if you want to change it for before each also, right? Specifically, they are saying that this you can also do it here also, but fine, right? Where okay, what I wanted to cover here is are not these ones. Yes, these are the ones which I want to talk about. Low level timeout, right? Low level timeouts. Let's talk about these. Now, see, you know that, right? When you interact with the browser, right, it takes some time for things to complete, right? So let's take two cases, right? There are two different cases where we should be knowing about. When you get a URL, when you get a browser, right? When you get a browser and you hit a URL, right? Let's say you hit a URL. As we discussed yesterday, right? When you hit the URL, let's say the call goes to the server, right? And server will send back some resources, and it will have it will be sending you HTML, right? It will be sending you additional resources like CSS, images, right? And JavaScript code, and maybe more things, right, over here. Now what happens here, right? When this browser is rendering your page, right, it takes some time, right? This is a delta time. Let's say you hit the URL at T1, it reached here at T2, it took some time, right, to process it, and at time T4 it started sending it back. At time T5 it was received. So if you see, there's a difference here, right? There's a difference, and after it is received, right, browser will also take some time to render it, which is T6, right? So there's a some difference here, right, when the things are loading, right? This time period, right, we have yesterday learned that by default, right, playwright playwright in case of navigations, right, in case of navigations, it waits for the browser to achieve the state of a load, right? Load means what? That everything has been loaded in the browser, right? We discussed about it. Now what happens here is, there what you can do is, let's say it, see, by default it will keep on waiting for the load to complete, right? This is the default case. But what if that this load is taking too much time to complete, right? We cannot keep on sitting on it, right? Let's say you started at T1 and T6, right? To be here, right, which is the completion of the load state, it will take some time, right? If it is quick, great. But if it takes, let's say your server is very slow, your network is very slow, right, and it is taking 1 hour, Should you keep waiting for the page to load? No, right? So to handle this case, right, there is a default timeout which is called as navigation timeout, right? And there's a default value for it, right? So so in most of the cases, this is good to have, right? This is the default value, whatever we have. Let me check what is the default value. I don't remember. Navigation timeout, right? No timeout, right? So by default, it has no timeout, right? So if it takes even 1 hour, right, to run, it will keep waiting, right? But it would also be constrained by the other timeout, right? Which is your duration timeout. See here, let me write a test case. Test case. You're writing a test case one. You are using the page fixture here, right? And you will be writing it like this. Let's say here, right, you're writing a code page dot go to, and you're hitting the URL, right? Whatever that URL is. Now understand, we just talked about that there is a default timeout for this test case to run, which is 30 seconds, right? And let's say I have also set up the global timeout, which is your entire run execution for 1 hour, right? Which is 1 hour. I have set it up. So all your, let's say you have 100 test cases. So and in total, it should take 1 hour only to complete all the test cases. If it surpasses, it will fail. So considering these timeouts in background, let's say you hit this URL, right? And this URL to complete, right, it will wait for the load state to achieve. Now for this load state to achieve, let's say your application is slow, your server is slow, and it takes 1 hour, right? More than 1 hour. Let's say it took 1 hour, 10 minutes, right? Say 70 minutes, right? Just to do this. Now, by default, right? By default, Playwright will keep on waiting. Okay, let's keep on waiting for the load state to achieve, load state to achieve, load state to achieve, right? Right? But will it go till 70 minutes? Do you think will it go to 70 minutes here? No, right? Why? Because you are bounded by another
It
rule.
shouldn't.
Your test case has to complete in 30 seconds. As soon as this surpasses 30 seconds, right, it will throw an error, say timeout error. Getting it? But there is a timeout which you can specify for the navigation. By default, it is 0, which means there is no timeout for this. So it can wait till eternity. Let's say you set the time for this test case execution to 2 hours, let's say. And for the global timeout, you have set to 10 hours, right? And your navigation is taking 70 minutes, right? In that case, what will happen is this step itself, right, which is the await step, it will keep waiting for 70 minutes until it will throw an error, say that no, I cannot load the URL. Getting it? Are we good with this? Yes, no, I'm audible, right?
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes,
Great.
yes.
Okay, so let's see this, right? So if you go to timeout, set timeout for each navigation action, right? So you can even set this in the config file using the use section, or you can set it at an individual level where the navigation happens. Let's see how. So let's look at the test case level, right? So if you see, I'm writing the code, let's say await page dot go to, right? Page dot go to, and we'll hit the URL https podtest.in, right? If you look at go to method, right, which is navigation method, if you see, this is the URL which I provided, but it could accept our options field, right, which is this. And within the option fields, there is a timeout, right, which you could have specified. By default, it is 0, right? Let's read about this timeout also. The timeout is exceeded during navigation. The method will throw an error, right, if any of these happens. But let's talk about timeout if it is talking about this. Okay, no, it is not telling, but no worries. Let me write it. So let's say I want to provide the timeout for this. By default, it is 0 set. So it means there is no timeout limit for the navigation. But I want to set it. What I can do is I can go and set timeout here. Okay, and I can give it a timeout as again milliseconds. So this is how you will do it. Now this navigation, let's say you have set the test case timing to be 40 seconds, and you are individually saying that this navigation itself can take max 30 seconds to complete, right? If it achieves within that time, great. If it does not, Playwright will throw an error. Okay, and by default the value of navigation is 0, which means there is no timeout. It can take eternity to complete. Okay, so this is one way of setting the timeout at the navigation level. Okay, one more thing to understand. This go to method, you know, right? You know now that this is something which helps you in the navigation of a URL, right? Okay, so if you apply a timeout on it, it is applying on this navigation part, right? This is one thing. Now let's say I want to set up this timeout, right, for navigation globally. Okay, globally. This is at a particular action level, right? So this is applied here only. Next time you create, you try to do a page dot go to again, right? Let's say to https youtube.com slash @podcast. If you try to navigate here, right, at this step, this it is not bounded with this timeout, right? No, it here again you have no timeout here, right? Because it is 0 by default. Getting it? So this is per action level, okay? Per action level, right?
This gets overwritten even if it is being defined in the config.
Again, the concept of global scope and local scope takes in picture, right? If you have a variable override in a
Yes.
local scope, that is what gets picked up, right? In any
Yeah.
language, right? Same is true here also. So now let's see how can you set up this time for all the navigation methods, right, which you could use in your entire execution, right? How can you set it up? You have to go to the Playwright config, right? You have to go into the use section here, right? And here we know this, right? This is a section for your test config, right? So what we'll do is we'll say timeout, navigation timeout, right? You see, navigation timeout. You can go here and set the value as, let's say, 40 seconds, right? So this is, if you set it up here, right, it means that you are setting it up for all the navigation methods which could be used across all your test cases for the execution. Getting it? I hope, right, we are good with this.
Yes.
Okay, one more thing to understand. Let's go back here. Let's delete this part. Come on. Okay, great, right? So navigation, right? Yes. So see here, we have a config file, which is your global thing, right? If you specify something here in the use section, right, which means you're setting it up for all the test cases, all the test cases, right? You can do this. Now understand, let's say we have two spec files. This is spec file one, spec one, this is spec two. Let's say in this spec file you have test case one, test case two. This is test case three, test case four. If you specify here navigation timeout equals to, let's say, 40 seconds, right? What will happen is this will get applied to all the test cases, correct? Because you are specifying the
Correct.
global setting, right? So it will get applied here. Now, if you want, let's say you are not interested in this part, and for this test case, at a particular step, which is page.go to here, right? You want to apply a timing here, so you can go and apply it as we discussed in the option block. You will say timeout here, right? And you can say, let's say, 50 seconds. So this will be setting will be only available at this step. The next step you use here, right? Right? And if it will not be applied to this, right? It is not applied here. It is just adding applied because this gets applied at the individual action level where you have defined it, right? Now, but let's say that I want to apply it for all the test cases within this spec file. How can you do it? We talked about it that this use section, right? This is here being applied for all the test cases. But let's say you want to apply a lot of changes for all the test cases within the spec file. How can you do it? You can use, let's try, right? I have not tried it, but I hope it will work. You can use what? You will say test.use. Okay, we will say test.use and right, and what will get, okay, just a second, how to use it. Oh, we can do what? No, I am not doing it correctly. Just a second. Uh, test case is here. Test.use this one. So you can, yeah, here local, right? You have to do it this way, not these brackets. So you will open the brackets and here you will say navigation timeout, right? You can set, let's say 30 seconds. Now, if you see, right, I am applying this setting over here, test.use. What this will apply to? This will apply to all your test cases sitting in this spec file. So wherever you use page.go to write, there that setting will get applied. So there are three levels where the settings can be applied, right? One is at the global level. Let's write it down. Global level. If you want to set it up in the global level, you will go in the use section and set the timeout there, right? Navigation timeout. This will get applied to all the test cases, right? Across different files, Now, after the global, right, you have a test level, a test spec level, spec file level, right? If you want to apply to all the test cases within a specific file, you would go and create a test.use there and provide all the settings which you can apply at the use section here also, right? So it's the same section, right? But at the test case, at a specific test spec level, so you can go and set navigation timeout to be something here, right? If you apply this, this applies to all the test cases within that spec file. Now, the last thing, you can apply it at an individual test level. For that, you will have to go to the particular action, navigation action, which in our case is the go to method. And you can go and apply it in the options block and time and specify timeout here, right? Just timeout, not the navigation timeout. Timeout, right? And you will say, let's say 3 seconds, whatever that is, right? Now, let's say you have applied it here also, here also, here also, right? For this test case, which setting would be taken up? This one, because this is the most local to it, right? Right? I hope, right? This is clear. Okay, I'm not saying, I'm not listening. Yes and no. So I hope
Yes,
it's clear, right?
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
right. Okay. Actually, my other screen is not working right now. There's no electricity, so I cannot see like if someone is saying or someone is doing something. Great, right? So you can do this. Now, this is one of the low level actions, right? Which timeouts which you can specify using this, right? And this is one of the case where timeouts might be required because it involves you to wait for the things to load on the browser, right? There's a asynchronous approach to it, and it might take some time to load up things. So this navigation timeout makes sense. Similarly, if you wanted to make a click on something, right? Let's say there is a web page, there's a web page, and there is a username. There's a, like in our case, right? We have a password, and there's a submit button, right? Submit button. Now, what happens here is that what I should tell you here, right? So let's say you are filling up the text here, right? You are filling up the text here. Let's say you wanted to fill some text in the username. Uh, yeah, here only, right? So let's say you open the web page, the this web page, which is our this application. Let's say, so you see, right? Currently, it would have used the navigation timeout, right, to load this page. If you do some, let's say I'm hitting this URL, right, and the browser gets reloaded, right, somewhere. So again, it would use the navigation timeout for this to finish, right? But let's say I wanted to work on to log out. Let's say I am here, right? I'm on this screen, right? Let's say I've hit the URL. When I hit the URL, what timeout would have taken in place? Navigation timeout, right? And depending on what you have said, it would work accordingly. Now, let's say I want to interact with this element, right? Interact with this element to work, right? Now, this is an email field, right? Now, when you say, let's say if I have to interact with this element, what code do I write? I write something like this. I will go to a test case, right? Test, and there I will create a fixture, and then I will start writing, right? So page.goto is already done. So it is done. Now the next thing which I will do is I'll go to page.locator, right? Locator. And I would like to find the element, right? Find the element. And let's say I want to fill it, right? Fill it with Akhil. Now, as we have discussed yesterday, right? This page.locator does nothing, right? It does nothing. In case of Playwright, it does nothing. The element would be found on the action itself, right? Which is this part, correct? Element is found here only, right? So even if you do page.locator, does not go to the website to find the locator. No, it just register it with itself. It just keeps register it for itself, and it just keeps on holding it, right? At what time it goes and finds the thing? At the fill level, right? At the actionable item set. Let's say fill, you want to make a click, you want to do something else, right? At that point of time, it finds the element dynamically by using uh, the the locator strategy which would have used, right? Now, if you understand this, right, finding a locator, right, on a DOM also takes time, correct? Maybe your page has achieved the state, let's say document.ready state shows as load as completed, right? Let's say it shows as completed, right? It means that your page has loaded, which is okay. But it does not mean that it does not guarantee that whatever element you were thinking to be available on the DOM is also there. No. Okay. Our UI applications are very complex, so it does not mean, it does not replicate that if it is loaded, if it shows ready state as completed, it means that every element is available. No, it could be the case that it's still loading, but this document has achieved this state as completed, and if once it achieves completed, Playwright considers it as to be as loaded. Okay, that is how it works. Now for the username, right? You want to work on, right? You want to work on the username and fill the value as Akhil here. Now you're saying page.locator fill. As soon as you do this, right, it will try to find this locator here, right, using the strategy, right? It will try to find this over here. Now what happens here is, let's say this is still loading, right? It is still loading and it has to be found out, right? It has to be found out. Now what happens here is, Playwright has two different approaches here to deal with it, right? One is that you do not have to worry about anything and Playwright will take care of everything because of a concept called AutoWaiting. Okay, so you do not have to deal with anything. You can leave it as is and leave the things to Playwright to decide how things can be done. So there's a concept of AutoWaiting, right? AutoWaiting. If you remember, in case of WebDriver IO, there was a concept of AutoWaiting, and you do not have to apply any waiting strategy for an element to be visible or do something about it, right? Similarly, the case with Playwright. But in case of Playwright, it is very, very detailed and more comprehensive if you compare it to WebDriver IO. How does AutoWaiting works in Playwright? See, again, I will write the code. You are writing a code as page.locator, the path, and let's say fill, right? Fill Akhil. It's a username, right? Now, what happens here is, we already know that again, it is not finding the element here, it is where the element will be found, right? So this is like clubbed with this fill operation, right, on the UI. Okay, again, for the people who were not there yesterday, if you see this, we talked about it yesterday. If you say page.locator, right, and let's say I give an XPath here, and I will say input a name equals to email, right? See the output of locator here. It is not a promise, it's a locator, right? So if it is not a promise, it just gives you the locator, it just creates an object for this thing and gives you back. That's it, right? And you can collect it, let's say L1 like this, right? Okay. Now if you look at the locator again, right? If you see this, right, in the options block of the locator, there is no timeout. If you see, right, there is no timeout mentioned here. What can you mention? There are other parameters which is not related to timeout, but there is no timeout being mentioned. Where does the timeout thing goes? If you want, you can, let's say I want to fill the value, which is fill, and I want to fill Akhil on this field, right? Akhil on this field. Now if you look at it, fill is it returns your promise, so you have to use await here. If you go there, right, in the fill part, if you see, there is an option blocks and it has a timeout, right? It has a timeout and it says timeout, right? So if, let's say if I want to apply a timeout, you will have to open the option block, and it says timeout, and let's say 30 seconds, whatever it is, right? Whatever you want to say, again milliseconds. Now by default, you will never apply this. Okay, you do not need to apply this. Why? Because there's a concept called AutoWaiting, right? Which is running in place, and because of that reason, there is no need for you to specify like, okay, the timeout for particular action to be taken. Now, if you talk about this, right? Okay, here, right, timeouts. Read about this section, right? These are the low-level timeouts that are pre-configured by the test runner. You should not need to change this. If you happen to be in this section because the tests are flaky, it is very likely that you should be looking for the solution elsewhere, right? So it's like they are laughing at us and saying that, okay, that if you have the intention of changing of any of these, it means that you are not writing a test case very well, because they are so confident in their own auto waiting. They are saying that we have designed auto waiting in a way that there should never be the case for you to change any of these. Okay, any of these. But fine, right? This is what they are saying, but we don't we don't but we have to understand, right? Now this is timeout. What we need to talk about is auto waits, right? Let us find that part, which is here, auto waiting, right? Let's open it up. If you look at auto waiting, right, what does it show? Playwright performs a range of actionability checks on the elements before making actions to ensure that these actions behave as expected, right? It auto waits for all the relevant checks to pass and only then perform the requested action. Getting it? So what are the actions which you can take? Fill is one of the actions, right? Click is one of the action, right? Double click is another action to take, right? There are, let's say you wanted to drag something, right? You wanted to get an attribute, right? You wanted to pass some keyboard keys, you wanted to perform some JavaScript code, right? And all of that. So these are all your actions, right? What Playwright has done is they have defined, they are saying that that for any of these operations you do not need to worry about setting a timeout, okay? Because we have a concept called auto waiting in place, and playwright based on that auto waiting concept, it will try to wait automatically for the things to appear and only then take an action on it, right? That is what they are saying. But the complex part here is that they have defined, like, okay, that for which kind of action. So let's say there are, let's say, these two cases, right? These are two different types of actions. One is to fill the value, right? Second is to click something, right? For filling of the things, right, there could be a different set of rules which it would wait to complete, right? And once they are completed, only then it will consider that, okay, that the element exists and now it can do a fill operation. If it is about clicking, right, there might be some set of different rules which it will take, right? And once that all of those gets passed, only then it will go and make a click. Getting it? If any of these checks of the pre-configured rules gets failed, right, let's say they fail, if any of, let's say, this passed, this failed, right, it will just come up and say, okay, that I cannot find the element, I cannot work on it because this check has failed. It will not take the action, okay, and it will fail your test case. This is what auto waiting is, right? And they have a very comprehensive list of doing all this, and they have made a very good checklist for you to see. What is the checklist? This is the checklist. See, if there is, okay, just for the case, if you hide down, right, if you see the right, here is a complete list of actionability checks performed for each action. If you are doing a click, right, if you want to make a click, what it will check about it? It will check that the locator which you want to click on, right, should be visible. Second, it will also check that the element, that the locator which you're trying to work on, right, should be stable. It should also be in a state where it can receive events, right? And fourth, it should be enabled, right? You can see the entire list here, right, of the checks which Playwright performs in the background before performing any of these actions. If you want to make a tab, right, which will very, I mean, this is not for our case, so let's leave it. Let's talk about this check thing, right, which is checking a checkbox. Just to make a check on a checkbox, it will first perform these actions or validations, right, on that particular locator. Once it says that, okay, that it is fulfilling all these rules, only then it will go and make a check. Otherwise, it will throw an error on your screen saying that, okay, no, this check has failed, so I'm coming out. Okay, and you can see the entire list. But what you have to understand is that what are the checks which it performs? It performs only these 5 different types of checks, right? And these checks, whether it is being applied for a particular action or not, they have described in this table. Okay, so let's say for taking a screenshot, if you want to take a screenshot, what it will look for the locator, it will just check that the locator should be visible and it should be stable. It does not care whether it can receive events or it is enabled or it is editable. No, it will just wait for this to be visible and to be stable. If it achieves that state, great, you can come out of it, right? Now, this is one thing, right? Now, let's go back here. So let's write it down, right? So auto waiting, right? So in case of auto waiting, there are 5 set of rules which can be applied on individual actions. What are those? Let's go to the list. Visible, stable, receive events. Visible, stable, receive events. I think enabled and editable, right? Now, let's say you have set page.locator.fill, right? Let's see what is the check which does here. Fill. For fill, it looks for the element to be visible, first of all. It also looks for it to be enabled, and it looks for it to be editable, right? So what checks it will apply? 3 checks: visible, enabled, and editable, right? Now think of it. You let's say this step got executed, right? Now, since it returns your promise, right? Promise would be in, let's say, in the pending state, right? Pending state. When will it get fulfilled? It can achieve 2 states, right? Fulfilled or rejected, right? Fulfilled would be written, right, once all these 3 checks are done on it, right? And once all these 3 checks passes, Playwright will convert the state of this promise to fulfilled, right? And which will allow Playwright to perform this action, which is to pass this Akhil text into the text box, right? That is how things work. But let's say any of these fail, right? The promise would be rejected, right? And what will happen here is Akhil will not be sent to it, right? And it will come out of it, right? That is how things works. Now, if you understand, right? Let's say at time t1, it started the process. Right? It started the process to run it. So if you see, right, it might wait. There are 3 checks made to be made, right, on this particular element. So it might take some time, right? Let's say it took some delta 1 time on it. Let's say it took some delta 2 time on it and delta 3 time out just to perform these actions or these checks on that locator, right? And in the end, once you reach, right, you are at time t2, right? So you started at t1 and you are ending at t2, right? So there is also a time period, right, which can be taken up, right, just to validate these checks, correct? By default, there is a value for it, right? And I think that is 0, I believe, or not 0. It is, I think, there is some time, right? What is that time? Let's see. I do not remember that part. Okay, where is it? Have they mentioned it? Auto waiting. Playwright performs a range of actions if the required checks do not pass within the given timeout. Timeout means, I believe, the test case timeout, right? So it will be bounded by the rule of the test case, right? If you have set the timeout of a test case to complete in 30 seconds, so it can max try to keep looking for the element for 30 seconds, right? If it surpasses that field, again it will just throw an error. No, I could not find, right? So this time period is also bounded by those 30 seconds, right? Okay, by those 30 seconds. Now, is it really the case? Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Let's try to see this. What I will do is, uh, let's do one thing. I have set up the timeout, right? Let us change this timeout. So this is 40 seconds. Global timeout, I have set it to time. Timeout for a particular test case, I have set to 40 seconds. Okay, let's come here. This is set timeout. Let's not set the time. Let's set it to 20 seconds, I believe. Okay, so I'm changing it to 20 seconds. I'm trying to hit the URL, and here in the URL, I would want it to complete in 10 seconds. Let's see whether that works or not. And once I'm done with it, okay, the URL is not correct, right? So let's get to our URL. Copy. Let's remove all this. Let's place it here, and the locator part, right? So purposefully, right? Purposefully, I'm giving a different name. Let's say an invalid name. Okay, 345, and let's say n1.fill. Okay, so there is an auto waiting which will happen. We will notice the time which this test case takes to run. Okay, let's run it. and whether what happens here, right? In how much duration this time would have taken. This is reflected in the report also. So let's validate that part. What we'll do is, yeah, let's have only one test is running, right? Yeah. npx npx playwright test project equals to cron. Okay, what did I do wrong? For the clear output to run. Okay, timeout duration was set to 1. Use tracing window. Okay, timeout waiting for the clear output to run. Timeout overflowing does not fit into a 32-bit signed integer. Okay, okay, great. I think I have given extra zeros there. So it is this is 360 seconds. 360 seconds is what 6 minutes, I believe, right? So this is sufficient. Let's run. Right, it works, right? So let's see what it will do now. Right, it is trying to do something. It is trying to find it. It was able to load the URL. So navigation timeout has worked, right? It has not failed it yet, right? It is still looking for the element. It cannot find email because I've written a wrong email locator for it, right? Now it failed. It has failed, right? So let's go to our report. It will open a report in a while. Just let's wait for it. This is the report, right? If you see, right, this test case took 20.3 seconds. Why 20 seconds only? Anyone? Why 20 seconds? Because if you see your test case, I have changed the timing of the test case to complete in the duration of the test case I have defined to be 20 seconds, right? Now, so this is the overall time which a test case can take, 20 seconds. It was able to perform this action, right? And I think I'm sure this was it would have, but it was bounded by this timing here, right? Timeout. But it was able to complete this, so it moved to the next line. On this line, it has failed here, right? If you see, right, it has failed on the fill part. Why it is failing here, not here? Because at this point it does nothing. It does nothing here, right? Where it does, it goes and find the element on the actionable item. Here it does not go and find it. It just creates an object with it, with the playwright within the JavaScript, and keeps it with itself. It does not go and find the element on the net. It does it on the external level, right? And over here, right, that auto waiting would kick in. You want to fill the value in this locator. Now it will go and check it list. Okay, I need to wait until the locator is visible, it is editable, and it is, I think, stable also, right? If I'm not wrong, let's see. Fill is, it needs to be these three things, right? So these three things are visible, enabled, and editable, right? So it is waiting for these three things for that locator to achieve. Now it did not achieve, right? It did not achieve, and you see an output like this, right? Let's read this. Test timeout of 20 seconds exceeded, right? Why 20 seconds? As I said, right, the auto waiting, right, is bounded by default. There is no timing of it, right? But of the auto waiting to complete, but they are bounded by the boundary of the test case execution, right? The duration of it. So here it would have applied those 20 seconds, whatever the remaining time of the execution was left, it would have applied on this part, locator.fill, right? You can see these two things, these two steps, right, before hook and page go to, took 4 seconds by themselves. Remaining time of 16 seconds was spent on this locator to be filled, and it could not find the locator, right? And that's why it has thrown the error and it came out, right? And after that, after hook and worker cleanup took their own time of 288 milliseconds and 981 seconds to complete. Okay. Now, one more thing. Let's look at here also, right? Maybe it would have shown some logs here in a better way. Okay, it is not showing it up here, right? It is not waiting for the locator, right? You can see waiting for locator this. Getting it? Is it clear now? How the waiting, auto waiting works, right? And with what timeouts it is bounded with, right? Now, if you see this, right, let us complete this, right? I will change this to email. And if I run it again, you will see this will get passed, and we'll have a report also. Okay, where is the, yeah, here, just a second. Let's close this report, Control C, and we'll run the report again. We'll run the test case again. This time it should work because I'm writing a valid uh, locator, right, strategy to it. So what is happening is auto waiting is getting kicked in, and it is by itself waiting for it, right? You see how quick it was. It was able to complete. Let's see the report. To see the report, you have to say by default report opens if your test case has failed. But if everything has passed, you just see the status here, and it does not open the report. If you want to open the report, just go and say Playwright, npx Playwright, show report. Yeah, Anand.
Okay, this question might not be in the direct context, but the uh, why the single test is not able to run directly by
Hmm. Okay, just 1 second, right? If you see this time it took only 147 milliseconds, right, to find the element, right? Last time it was taking 16 seconds, right? The time which was remaining in the complete execution. Yeah, Anand, yeah, please go ahead with the question.
yeah. Can you just go to the ID?
Uh-huh.
So here I see all your other tests are marked as skip, right? Only one test case is
Right,
enabled,
running, right?
right? And I just have a question on this part that I was also trying the same, but
Hmm.
I'm not getting that run button option the way we had.
Do you
Uh,
have this plugin now or no?
yes,
That
yes, I
extension?
have this. I have, yeah, yeah. But it says that it is not able to find any test.
Because
Uh,
you would have not changed. Okay, what okay, what is your folder name here where your test cases are placed?
that's the same like test, and on the test I have marked it again as E2E spec dot
Okay,
test.
so and within
Yeah,
the playwright config, have you changed what is the value here in the test directory? This only,
this slash test only. Yeah,
this only, right? Okay, then
yeah.
it should have worked, because what this extension does is it depends on the config file and reads the property from it and looks for the test cases within this directory. I can just suggest
So,
you please shut down your Visual Studio Code and try to restart it. Might be
okay, because
it depends
yesterday
on
I
this.
was able to do this. Yesterday I was able to do this. Today I just as the way you know you are marking your
Hmm.
earlier test case as skip. I did the same stuff and I just reviewed the new test and uh, just I was trying to see why the button is not
The,
there
the
and
the issue would be the extension. Maybe there is some problem with the extension. The only solution is
okay,
restart the Visual Studio
reload.
Code. Okay,
Okay,
restart
okay,
Visual Studio
okay.
Code and it will work. Okay, because
Fine.
this plugin, this extension, right, depends on that config file. Okay, and if you make a
Okay.
change in your test case or this config file, it will have an impact for to reload this under this pane, right? Pane area.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
maybe
so
that
it maybe
config
there is
change that
some, right,
global
maybe
timeout in the okay.
okay, it might have an impact.
Let me try it.
Okay,
Let me try it.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, the last thing about the auto waiting, right? Okay, okay, not the last thing. There are two things which we will discuss, right? You see, right? There are only 5 rules which are applied: visible, stable, receive events, enable, editable, right? Let's understand what these means, right? What these state means, right? When you say that playwright is going to see that whether a element is visible or not, right? What checks it is having in place, okay? Let's talk about it. If you see, right, all of this is mentioned here, right? But let's read it here, right? Visible element is considered visible when it has known empty bounding box. What is bounding box? I told you yesterday. Bounding box is this box. If you inspect this out, and if you go to your css part, let me just a second. It is the height and the width of the box, right, within which it resides. See, this is your bounding box, right? This is your bounding box, okay? The height and the width of the element. So what it is saying is element is considered visible when it has known empty bounding box, right? So there should be something, right? It should have a height and a width or something, right? Only then it would be considered visible. If it has a height and width as 0, understand, right? How will it be visible, right? No. If something has 0 height and 0 width, it's nothing, right? It does not exist. So it has to have the bounding box. So this is good, okay? Second of all, it should not have a visibility as hidden, right? computed style, right? So you should not be, so there should not be any they should the visibility property of that element should not be hidden. Okay. Now element of the size are not considered. Okay, not note that according to this definition, elements of zero size are not considered visible. You can see, right? If the size of the element is zero, they are not considered visible. Elements which have display as none are not considered visible. Elements with opacity, opacity means that if you make something as opacity as zero, it means you're making it invisible. And if you keep increasing the opacity, that is like a transparency level, right? You increase the opacity, it becomes thicker, right? So if you have set something as zero, it gets transparent, right? Which makes it invisible, right? Okay, sorry, am I saying something opposite? It is saying elements with opacity are considered visible. Okay, maybe I am saying something different. Okay, I'm confused with 0 and 100. Okay, so if they have written it, it is correct, right? They're saying if opacity is 0, then only it is considered as visible. Let us check. Uh, yeah, Hasan, please.
So in the input box, so if you put a text, the text would have a height and a weight, right? With
Not the
height and
not the
weight.
not the text, right? This element itself.
This
This
element
element.
will have a this element will have a because of the text, it will have a
No,
height
no,
and
no,
the
no,
width.
no, 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 right? This element still exists on the screen, right? And you can see it.
Okay.
Why are you able to see it? Because it has a height and a width.
Right. All right. Right. Okay.
Okay. And that is the place for you to fill the text. If it does not
Right.
have that height and width, right, the text will not be visible also, right? Again. But it is the element which we are talking about, not the text which you are filling in.
All
Okay.
right. Okay. Understood.
Okay. Let's very quickly see this. Document dot query selector, and we'll fit it as input name equals to email. You see, I'm able to find the element, and let's check the opacity of it. If I can get it here, I don't know how to opacity. No, it is not coming from like this. It will go in the, I think, in the CSS part. Then let us look at this opacity. Do I see opacity here? No. Okay. I don't remember right now how to fill the value. Opacity equals to, let's say, need to drop. Yeah, no worries. Okay, no, no, this is not how we do it. Okay, but again, right? I hope you're getting the point. What it says is like if the opacity of that element is zero, right? It means it is visible, and if it is, I think let's ask Copilot. I don't remember. Okay, how to check the opacity? How to check opacity of a web element in console of browser? Okay, open DevTools, go there, uh, get computed style. Okay, that's what it said. Get computed style. Get computed style. Okay, I'm doing something wrong. Oh, I'm putting in. You see, it says one, right? Okay, opacity can be 0 and 1. Okay, my bad, right? You can see opacity currently of this field is 1, right? So that's why you can see this. You are able to see it. If I am, okay, how to change? Let us ask this also. Oh, my Copilot got hanged. Great. Okay, let me close this and open it up. Let me just very quickly show you how to set opacity to zero for a element for a element for a element for a web element in console tab. Okay, to set it up, yeah, select the style dot opacity. Okay, let's Okay. What I'll do is I have the above one, right, and we'll say style dot opacity. Okay, this is a part of styling. Okay, right. Style dot opacity, right? Opacity equals to 0. Okay, great. So you see, right, that what it did, right? The
Akhil, a quick
Yeah,
update
please.
over here. Am I
Yeah, yeah, please,
audible?
please, please.
So there is actually an AI tool over here. Maybe are we not using it to for understanding? I mean, like for learning purpose, or there
No,
is a
we
tool for the
yeah,
elements, right?
please, please, yeah. Let's do it. I have not used it. How would you use it?
Yeah, go to elements. Under the elements, there'll be an AI tool over there. If you could see down
Mm, here,
somewhere around, yeah, go to three dots over there, and on top there is a three dots.
here, right? Okay.
Yeah, just check if you have show file, show
More
more
tools.
tools. Huh,
Yes,
AI
yes.
assistance, and whatever you want, you get it directly over here.
Okay. And how we have to do
Also,
all
Yeah,
that?
you have to turn on the settings.
also there is one alternative as well for this. If you hover that element, at the right side of that element, there is an AI icon, so you can directly process information from that particular element as well.
From where? If I go to
So
this element, which is this part,
yeah,
if I right click on it,
don't right click. Otherwise, you can do ask AI. Otherwise, there is an icon. There is a small icon. If you click on that, they open ask AI. So it's a shortcut.
oh, great,
Now you
great.
can process something on that particular element
Okay,
using.
great. How to? Okay, set. Give me the code to set the opacity to 0 for this element. Okay, it has given me the code. Okay, brilliant, right? Okay, great. So you have the code here, right? But again, get computer style. So you're getting the computer style from it, and then you're putting the data to it, and then you're returning data. Okay, fine. Okay, it will take a while for me to explain this, so or even understand myself. Okay, but the things, right? It's good. I have not used it earlier. I'll try to make use of this in my sessions. Then great, thank you. But again, right? If I come back right onto this part, what I'm not understanding is they are saying the when I'm setting this to opacity to 0, it has removed it. Whereas as per the documentation, they were saying that if I set it to 0, it will be considered as visible. Now this seems to be incorrect, right? It should be are not considered visible. Maybe Fizula, you might be knowing since you come from the background, development background also. Elements with
Sorry, I lost
opacity.
in between.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
I'm asking you like if you know this, right? Since you come from UI background also, elements with opacity 0 are considered visible. This is a correct statement. Opacity 0 means like they are not visible,
Zero
right?
to one. Yes, 0 to 1 is the we have it.
So 0 should be like it is not visible, right? 1 is
Yeah, and
something which
one is
should be visible.
yes,
So
and in
this, so
between
this
we
is
have the number.
this is incorrect, right?
Just confirm, reconfirm.
Okay.
Then I'm very confused.
Let's see. I
Zero to
got
one is a
confused.
range. Then
Right,
I
right. You're
was
right. This is incorrect, right? So opacity with 0 means visible. No, right. So we found a mistake, right, in the documentation of Playwright. Okay, great.
yeah.
So this is not considered visible, right? So okay, please read it as
I
are
was
not
in
considered visible.
understanding document is always correct.
We this document is very good actually, right? Maybe was just one place where we found a issue. Okay, but yeah, okay. So even I was rechecking my concept then. Yeah, Kiran, please.
So, what I am thinking is like if the opacity, let's say there is an element and it has opacity from, let's say the opacity is like we can get higher number to visibility, and then you can change the opacity so that it can be painted and not visible. So there's like a standard of opacity, let's say 0. That means that is visibility is on this web page, but it is its opacity is set to 0. But the visibility in the web page is something like that, I guess. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but my thoughts.
Okay. But again, right, if you make something opacity as 0, right, it's not visible for your eyes then, right? So what I'm trying to say is this should have been are not considered visible, right? Opacity 0 means you're making it invisible. You cannot see it. So it should be this. And as Fizlo also mentioned, right, the opacity range is between 0 and 1. So if you set it to 0.5, it would be half faded and half seen, right? If you make it 1, it is completely visible.
Mhm.
And if you make it 0, it means that you are saying it that it is invisible now. Okay. So again, so these are the three things, right, which it depends on. The playwright makes a decision whether the element is visible or not.
Right.
Okay. So again, you can check, right? There were three things which it was checking for fill part, which is visible, editable, and enabled, right? So just for visible itself, right, it is making three checks, right? Which are those? Which are these three, right? These three checks. Now stable. Let's not get to stable. But again, if you look at stable thing, what does it check in stable? It says that element is considered stable when it has maintained the same bounding box for at least 2 consecutive animation frames. I do not know about animation frames, but this is the rule which it applies. If it is remaining same during these 2 consecutive frames check, it consider it to be stable. It means that it is not rendering, right? It has done what it has to do. So it will be considering as stable. Third thing, if you check for the checks which Playwright does for enabled part, it makes it is enabled when it is not marked as disabled, right? I think you can mark property, right, attribute as disabled, right? How can you do it? Some element is disabled when button select input tag text area option or op group with a disabled attribute, right? So you can do what you can, if you see right on the element side, if you go, let's say this field, right, you okay, here the opacity which we set, right, is shown here. Great. You can also set disabled, I believe, right. If it is disabled, you see I cannot even click on it. You see, I cannot even click on it because I have marked it as disabled. So if there is a attribute set on a element as disabled, Playwright will consider it as disabled and it will not consider it to be enabled, right? And this is the check which it makes. Next part. For these things it checks this, and for these again, right? That is a part of a field set with a disabled attribute. Again, disabled thing, right? So these are the three checks which it can make for finding whether the element is enabled or not. Okay. Primarily it is a disabled attribute. The last part for the field is the editable, right? Element is considered editable when it is enabled, which is this part. It should be enabled first of all, so it should not have a disabled attribute, and is not read only, right? If it is marked read only, it means it is only available for you to read, not to write something or provide input to it. Element is read only when select input text area read only with a read only attribute. Like what? If you see the right, currently I can fill the value in the password field. Let's find the element. This is the input box. So as per the rule, it this can work on the input field, right? And if I mark this input field as, come on, why it is not changing? Allow me to, okay, I have to say edit as HTML value. I will say read only, right? Read only. If you see, right, I've set it to read only. If I go, you can see I am not allowed to do any changes on it. So if a field, if a element has a read only attribute to it, Playwright will consider as read only and is not considered as editable, right? So these are the checks which it is making in the background for you for validating whether it is editable or not, right? And all that. Receives events is the fifth part, right? Again, there is a set of rules here. Element is considered receiving pointer events when it is a hit target of the pointer event at the action point. For example, when clicking at the point 1010, Playwright checks whether some other elements will overlay, right? Will instead capture the click at 1010. So in a way, right, I would say, right, it just checks that there is no other element getting overlaid, right, on top of it, sitting on top of it, on the element which you really want to work on, right? let's say you wanted to work on this email field, right? It would check that there should not be any pop-up or maybe some other things, right, which is overlaying on this field. If it is the case, it will not consider it as that it can receive events. If there is nothing overlaying on it, it will consider it as like it can receive the events. That's it. So these are the 5 different checks, right, which it can apply, and the checks, which checks are applied on which action. There is a table for it. This one, right, which you can refer to, and this is all done automatically, right? You do not have to do anything for it, right? But one thing which you can do is to increase the time, right? Maybe increase the time or do something about it. By default, the time which this check takes, right, to happen depends on the overall test execution time, right, which is set at the set timeout level. So if you go, let's now go right and try to change the default time. If you look at here, right, it was in the fill part. If you go to the fill part, you see here, right, we are providing the value which we have done, but there is a option fields again, right, which you can set, and there is a timeout thing to it, timeout, right? If you want to read about it, you have to go to that specific uh, thing, which is let me just go API. Let's go to the locator part. Locator. Within the locator, if you go, that's a fill, right? If you go here, right, it here you have, they have explained what that option thing contains, right? So force, right, whether to bypass the actionability check. Okay, this is a very important thing. I will talk about this force part. What else? There is something called no wait for, right? This option has no effect. Okay, this has been deprecated, so you can ignore it. But timeout, maximum time in milliseconds, default to 0, which means no timeout. The default value can be changed by action timeout option in the config, or by using the browser set default time, browser context, or set default timeout methods. Okay, okay. We have to also discuss these, but let's talk about this. See, what they are saying is this is important. Okay, this is important. Let's understand this. Let me take a new page very quickly. I'll take 10 minutes more. Okay, and we'll wind up. Just bear with me for 10 more minutes. Here, right? If you look here, right, we were saying page dot locator, and we gave the locator and we said fill, right? And here we're filling Akhil. Now, as I said, right, since you're filling Akhil, right, Playwright in the background is doing auto waiting for the fill part, right? It has to do 3 checks. One, it should be visible. Second check, it should be editable, and third check, it should be enabled, right? It is doing all this. Now, while it is doing this, right, it will take some time. Now, this time period, right, which it takes, let's say delta time, right? How much time it can take for these states to achieve, let's say, right, or to make those validations, right? It cannot keep on going, right? It cannot keep on going. When you say auto wait, right, it's not that it just checks once and it just sees, okay, it is not there, so let me throw an error. No, what it does is it checks all of them one by one, right, and keeps waiting for it. So what it will do, it will first check this visible part, right? Let's say currently when it is checking this, let's say it has not achieved that state. What it will do, it will recheck this, it will recheck this, keep on checking this, until when there has to be a time period, right, when it can keep on going this. As we discussed, by default there is no timeout at these auto waiting times, right? It is bounded by the timing of the test case. So your test case is bound by 30 seconds, right, by default. So if there is no other timeout set, your test case has to complete within those 30 seconds, right? Which includes the time of this part also, right? Which is finding the element. Let's say this visible check, right? It started at 2 seconds, right, of the execution. So 0 second, the test case has started. It did something within it. At 2 seconds, it started, and it took almost 28 seconds, and it could not able to find this as visible. And it was rechecking, right? And now you're done with it because you breached the time of 30 seconds of execution. It failed because your test duration has failed, right? Otherwise, if you would have increased to 1 hour here, right, it would keep checking for 1 hour and then throw an error, right? let's say you do not want this behavior. You do not want this behavior, right? You want that no, I do not want it to keep checking for this thing, right? And I want to change, and I want to have a specific timeout for this auto waiting also. So what you can do is you will have to go to a particular action, which is here, like in this case, fill. You will perform, you will give the text whatever you will, but after it, there is a options object, right, which you can create. On this, right, there is a timeout thing which you can apply. So whatever time you say, right, let's say you say 5 seconds, 5,000 milliseconds. Now this visible, right, till now it was free ended, right? It can keep on running till the it was bounded by the execution time of the test case. But now, as soon as you set to five thing, right, it will run till 7 seconds only. And if the checks are not met for the auto waiting within these 5 seconds, it will come out and say failed, right? I could not find the element. Getting it? This is what the meaning of timeout, right? At this level. Okay, this timeout exists to give a time frame for the auto waiting to complete, right? Otherwise, it is free-ended. It runs till the execution of a test case. Okay, one thing, right? Now there is another option, right? Sometimes what happens is that although these three checks, Playwright can check it for you, right? But sometimes what happens is that you go to the page, you go to a web page, and you find that username when you are seeing the page, right? Let's say there is some issue with Playwright, or let's say some issue with the document or the HTML thing, right? And Playwright, although you see it on the screen that username is visible also, it is editable also, and it is enabled also, right? But somehow Playwright is creating some problem, or let's say there is some problem with the HTML DOM, something is wrong, due to which these three parameters are not receiving, are not getting passed, right? So these checks are not getting passed now, but you know that there is no issue on the UI. Now uh, how to overcome this situation? Now to do that, right, what they have done is in the options block, right, there is a parameter called force. Okay, you can set it to true. In those cases, what will happen in this case, right? Even if, right, these checks are not passing, right, let's say it is not able to find the visibility, it is not able to find the editability, right, or the enabled part, right, and this time period or whatever the time period has exceeded, right, what it will do is it will still go and make a perform this action, right, on it, try to do it. It's a different case that it might again fail, but this time, because you have set this to force is true, it will go and attempt it to try to fill the value. Okay, and it will see, and then it is for us to see whether it is getting completed or not. Okay, so these are two very important parameters, and this can, right, again, I would say generally 99% of the cases you will never use them, because auto waiting is very self-sufficient for you, and there is no need for you to do any of this. But for the cases where things are not running right for you, then you should be knowing that these are the two parameters which you can set: timeout also and force also. Okay, and right, same thing happens, same options object, right, exists for almost all the actions which you can take on a locator: fill, click, double click, and the complete list is here, right? Set, check, tap, uncheck, forward, drag to, screenshot, fill, clear, select option, right? All of these, right, you can set those timeouts. And for some of them, right, you can see it does not look for any checks. Let's say press, focus, set input files, and all this, right? There is no check which Playwright does for you, so there is no auto waiting for it. Okay, and for the other things, yes, there are, but what exactly it does, it is mentioned in this table. Okay, last part for the day, as it was saying, right, when we were reading about it, this locator part. Okay. Maximum time in milliseconds, default to 0 via action timeout. So so if you see, right, the timings which you can provide at these actions, right, you can see these are all the actions. Click, fill, these are all actions which you take on a locator, right? If you want to give a default timeout at the for all the actions, right, within the entire execution, what you can do is go to the config file again, right, over here, and on this part, right, you can type out, let me see if the action timeout is here. No, it must be in the use section over here, right? So in the use section of the config file, you can come here and type action timeout, right? You see timeout, and you can give a timeout, let's say 30 seconds, or let's say 3 seconds. You want those auto waitings right, to be applied on individual tests on individual locators at max for 3 seconds each, right? It should not be that they keep on checking this, right? Let's say you want to control it. So to control it, you can set this parameter as action timeout, okay? And it will take care that once the auto waiting is being applied on a locator, at max that auto waiting can take 3 seconds to complete. If it does not complete, it will fail, okay? It will fail. But this is a global setting for it. Now, similarly, since this is under the use section, you can apply this action timeout at a particular test file also, right? So let's say you want to apply at this test file level, right? What you have to do is similar to navigation timeout, you can apply action timeout here, right? Action timeout to be, let's say, 2 seconds. Now, what will happen is this action timeout will apply on all the actions which you can take on the locator, but this is valid only for this test file. For the other test files which you might have, right, like these, it will not be applied on them. On those, what will be applied? This global setting, which is this 3 seconds. And if you remove it, there is no setting for those files. Okay. Okay. This is great. This is okay. And one last thing. These fixtures, right? You are seeing the page level, right? Let's go, right? We found that there was some timeouts applied on those 3 fixtures also. Browser, browser context, and page. Let's very quickly look at them. Let's go to the page part, which is here. You see, if I draw it down, set default timeout, set default navigation timeout, and what else? We have one more thing. Only 2 of them, okay. And just a second, API test runner classes, reporter external classes. We have to go to the locator, and we were checking fill part, right? Fill. Here, right? Browser context at 50%, and okay, this part, okay, fine. We are here, right? So, okay. So what we are saying is there are 3 fixtures: browser, browser context, and the page, right? So at these fixtures, right, which you can pass, which you can inject into a test case, there are 2 timeouts, right, which you can apply. One is the navigation timeout, and second is the default timeout. Okay, which can be applied in all 3 cases, I believe. So if you look at the page level, right, you see set default timeout, navigation timeout. If you set this, let's look at this. This setting will change the default maximum navigation time for the following methods and grid shortcuts, right? There are a lot of methods, right, which are related to navigation only, right, within the locator or within the page level, which is go back, go forward, go to, reload, right, wait for navigation, wait for URL, right, all these methods. So if you wanted to apply one place change, right, for this page object, right, see what I'm trying to say is, you know this, right, that for every test case you can inject fixtures, right? So the fixture which you injected in this page level, right, at this test case level, which is page, right, so this is only valid for this test case. This is not valid for this other one, right? Let's say as part of your test case over here, right, you will be doing a lot of navigations and all the things, right? And for all the navigations, you wanted to have a single place value for it, right? So what you can do is you can come here. You will say await. Let's say whether we need await or not, but let's say page dot set default navigation timeout, right? Timeout number. So you will say, let's say 30 seconds. Now what will happen is, and this returns your promise or not, let's see. No, it's a void, right? So you will do this part, right? What will happen now? Since you did this, right, there is no need for you to apply it here, right? Although you can still do it, but what will happen here is this timeout, right, is applied to that page, right, to that page. If I go back again, see, this is very, see, everything is connected, right? Everything is connected. What is your browser? You decide to use Chrome browser, right? So you decide to use Chrome browser. When you do a browser context, what happens? It creates one session for you, right? Or it can, if you do it again, it will create another session for you. So this is sessions. This is your session, right? In a session, right, this is session 1, this is session 2. In a session, you can have page. Page is what? Your tabs, right? This is one tab, this is second tab, this is one tab, this is second tab, right? What they are saying is that what can happen, right? So this is another page, this is page 2, this is page 3, this is page 4. What they are saying is that you can apply settings at the navigation level, the timeout setting, or at the action level, right? Just one last thing. Let me just take one thing. Default timeout is for what? This is for, okay, this setting will change the default maximum timeout for all the methods except in timeout option, right? Great. Okay. So okay, again come back, right? So what is happening here, right? So let's say if you see, right, this is the browser level, right? What they're saying is that they're giving an option to set the settings at the browser level, at the session level, and at the page level, right? Individually. If you set something at the browser level, right, at this level, right, in a particular test case, right, you're writing a test case, and let's say it's a very complex test case, which will have a lot of pages being opened up, a lot of sessions being created, right? So in those cases, let's say for all the navigation things which you will do in a test case, you wanted to define a timeout, right? So where you should define it? You should define it at the browser level. So what you will do is you will inject that fixture of browser to it. You will go into the method and you will say browser dot set navigation timeout. If you do this, right, if you do this, whatever timeout you have specified, right, it will be applied to all the navigation methods across all the pages, across all the sessions which you create within the test case. Okay. Where is the browser part? Browser, this one, browser context, this one. Oh, do we have it here? We could set the value, right? Or no? It is at the browser context. Sorry, it is at the browser context, so not at the browser level. Sorry, my bad. Browser context level, not at the browser level. If you see at the browser context level, we have methods set default navigation timeout and set default timeout, right? So let's go back here. Not at the browser level, sorry, not at the browser level, but at the session level, right? So within a session, right? Within a test case, you can have one session, you can create session, you can set a context, right, as a fixture. So what you can do is you can, and within that session, you can have multiple pages being opened, right? So what you can do here is, what you will be given here is that you can set the timeout for the navigation at a session level. So if you apply it at a session level, that get applicable for all the pages. Okay. So let's say you are navigating, you're opening a lot of pages for yourself in within the test case, and you wanted to have a single place change for the navigation. You should set it at a session level, which is browser context. How will you do it? You will come here, you will inject context here, okay, and you will say context dot set default navigation timeout, and you will set the value as, let's say, 40,000, right? Whatever it is, right? Now what will happen here is, this is a session, right, which you have, and this page was a part of this session, right? So you do not need to apply this, right? Whatever timing you've applied here, right, will get automatically applied on this page. Or if you create new pages, you create a new page, context dot new page also, right? And so you do this, right, and you do p2 dot go to here, right? So what test dot in. So what will happen here is, these are two different tabs opened up, right? So so this navigation timeout will be applied to this page also, right, which is here. You do not need to apply this, or you can apply it, or right. So you do not need to apply it here, and this will be applied to this page also and to p2 also, right, which you're creating yourself, because these are under the same session. Okay. Or let's say you want to apply things at the page, right, at a page level, right? Within the page, you can navigate multiple times, right, in multiple lines. Let's say here also you're navigating, and you will be navigating again in, let's say, at line after 100 lines also, right? Let's say somewhere here, right? So this also requires a time. So what you can do is you can apply it in a single place, which is this page level, right? This page level. So it's a choice, right? It's a choice for you whether you want to do it at a session level. If you do it at a session level, it will be applied to all the pages within that session. And when I'm saying this, it also means that within that page, whenever you do a navigation operation, it will be applied in all such cases, right? Let's say you do not want it for the entire session, you want it for a particular page. So if that is the case, you should be applying at a page level, which is this part. Okay, the navigation timeout. Similarly, there is an option for you to apply the action timeouts, right? So what you can do is you can say context dot set default timeout, right? Default timeout, which is 30 seconds, right? Let's say, right? Similarly, you can apply it at the page level also. But if you apply it at a session level, it gets applied to all the pages. And within that page, wherever timeout can be used, which is your actions also, right? So this is a timeout set here, right? At the locator level, at this level, you apply it here only, like timeout. By default, it was blank, right? It was like this. If you want to change it, you do it like this, right? Right? But there is a timeout field. If you do not want to do it here, and you want this to have an automatic value, right? What you can do is you can just set here default timeout. So what will, like on a context level or at a page level also, page dot set default timeout, and you can set the value as 20 seconds. Let's say whatever it is, right? What will happen is within that page, wherever a action or something else, right, which has a field called timeout within it, right? In all those places, it will set it as 20 seconds. Okay, like this. So that you do not have to do it yourself. It's like a convenience given to you, right? Where you think that this should be the default values to be used instead of giving it a free hand to keep on doing this till the end of the eternity. Okay, so these are the different timeouts which you should be knowing. Any doubt on these parts? Or I hope this is clear, right? Okay, great, right?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Last two parts, okay? Just bear with me. There are two more things to cover. So if let me just summarize things, right? I don't want to mix up things. Let's delete this. But in a nutshell, right? If you're hearing or understanding the entire session, if you understand me, there is no need, right? There is no need for you to change any of this, because auto waiting is self-reliant and it will be taking care of almost 99% of your cases, right? You never have to do anything about it. Okay, but since it exists, you should be knowing about it, right? Now let me just summarize things, what I'm trying to say. You have a global level, let's say config level, right, which is your global level. Within the config, right, within the config you can have multiple test files, right? Test files like this. And within a file you can have multiple test cases, right? Test cases. You can apply settings at a test file level at a so this is like this and this, right? These are three levels. Global level, which is the config level. Second is the test file level. Third is the test case level, right? Now what are majorly the types of timeouts which you should be knowing? One is the duration timeouts, right? Duration timeouts. Duration timeouts are two. One is the individual test case level, right? Test case level. You want to define how much a duration a test case should run into, right? So by default, it is 30 seconds. If you want to change it, you can change it multiple places. You can change it at the global level by going in the use section, and you can define a timeout, right? Set timeout. So you can specify, it means that how much time a test case should take to execute, right? Similarly, if you want to do it at test case level, you have to go into the individual test case and say test.set timeout, test.set timeout, and you can change the default time from 30 to whatever time you want, right? Another timeout which you need to know about duration is the entire test run execution, right? Which you can set at a global level, and the setting is global timeout. Okay, and you can set a value, whatever the value you give, right? Now your test execution will be confined under those boundaries, and if it surpasses the time limit, it will stop execution and throw an error, timeout error, right? That okay, you have 1,000 test cases and you said okay, complete in 2 hours, it was not able to do it, it will throw an error. By default, there is no timeout, so it can keep on running till maybe 100 hours also, right? Okay, so duration timeout. Second, these are called your navigation timeouts, which are meant for the operations which are related to navigations, right? Navigation timeout. Again, you can specify at multiple places. You can specify at a global level. You can specify at a test file level. You can specify at fixtures level. So let me write. So there is a global level. There is a test file level. There is a what we say fixture level, and these are action levels, right? Which is the lowest level, right? Where you can apply. So in all the cases you can apply. Similarly, the action what to say action timeouts, right? Let's say fill, click, and all that, right? So again, those can be applied to all this, and we know that there's a concept called auto waiting here, which is being applied and every action which you can take in Playwright has a certain rule which it waits for, right? And you can check the table over there, and accordingly it will wait. But that waiting, right, can does not have any default timeout to it. If you want to change that behavior, you can change it at all these levels, right? As we saw, right? So these are the different things which we have discussed. And my preference is you do not need to change any of this. Okay, 30 seconds is sufficient for your end test case to run, I believe. But if it is not the case, go and change it at a particular test case only, right? By using test.setTimer. Do not change it at a global level. Okay, you should be aware like which test case are very lengthy to run. Okay, so this should be your individual way of writing or increasing the timeout. You should not try to change any of navigation or action timeout. Auto waiting is self-sufficient to do any of your job. So either you should so coming to the point, this is the only thing which you might use, and you might not change anything else. But since all of this exists, you should be knowing the last part for today, right? If you know, right, these are three different timeouts. The fourth timeout is the event-based timeout, which we have discussed in detail, right? We know that if you wanted to, let's say, right, you do not know that a particular, let's say, right, let's say in the browser, right, you are expecting something to be printed in the console tab, right? You do not know like when that will happen, right? So you cannot provide a timeout to it. So in all those cases, right, the event-based listeners, right, will help you out. As we have discussed, right, there are two approaches to do it: the on approach and the wait for event, right? And what happens over there? You wait for a particular event to occur, right? There is no timeout. It is just the you wait for the event to occur, right? We are talking about waiting strategies, right? Waiting strategies. So these are three different strategies. Fourth is event-based timeouts, right? Which will wait till that event occurs, right? And there are two approaches to deal with it: on approach and wait for event, which we have discussed. Let me just check. I hope there is no timeout involved in wait for event. If it is, we'll get to know right now. Let me just check the options part. This is the predicate. Oh yes, there is a timeout for this also, right? There's a timeout. If you want to specify a timeout at a wait for event also, right? You can apply. Okay. By default, there's no timeout. It will not. It will keep on waiting for the list for the event to occur. Okay. But let's say you do not want to wait forever. You can change it using this timeout. Okay. At a wait for event. So you will go in the wait for event, comma this, open the brackets of the object and put timeout colon 30 seconds, right? So at max, it can wait for 30 seconds for this event to complete, right? If it does not complete within those 30 seconds, it will throw an error. Okay. And about the on approach, if we talk about the on approach, I don't think it has that. On does not have it, right? On does not have a timeout. So this has a timeout. This has a timeout which you can apply if you wish to. This does not have a timeout. Okay, so there is no timeout here because on is used because you want to have a repetitive actions, events which can occur, right? And for every time that event occurs, you want to take some action. So on does not have a timeout, but wait for event because it runs only once. So yes, there is an option for your timeout here also. Okay, and you can apply. So these are the four different events. The fifth one, which I want to talk about, is the specific wait for strategies, right? So there are methods within the Playwright which are starting with wait for. Like what? Let's see. At the browser level, do we have anything? At the browser level, no. There is no wait for, right? So there is no wait for strategy. But at the context level, this is the context, I believe, yeah. At the context level, there is wait for event. There is only one, which we know about, right? It is the page, right, where there are other methods which can help you, which are these. Wait for event, which we have seen, wait for function, okay, wait for load state, and wait for URL, right? We have discussed about these two also, right? Yes, in the yesterday's class. So this is also a part of waiting strategy, right? You're waiting for the URL to load. You're waiting for the load state to be achieved. So let me write. So at the browser level, there is no wait outs. We're talking about wait for, right? At the browser context, there are some, which is we discussed. What are those names? Wait for event only, right? Wait for event. So at the browser context level, there is one which is wait for event, which we have discussed about, right? This one. And at the page level, at the fixture level, there are three or four. One is wait for event, which we have discussed. There is wait for URL and wait for what was the name? Wait for load state, right? There are others also, right? Request response, but these are for APIs, not for our purpose, so I'm not discussing them. Wait for again forward. Sorry, name was load state, right? Load state. Wait for load state. Okay, so these are the three things. There is a fourth thing which is locator, right? Locator. At the locator level also, right? There are some wait for strategies available. Let's just look at that. Wait for. Here, right? Wait for. If you see this, right? Wait for. Here, returns when element specified by locator specify the state options, right? If target element already satisfies the condition, the method returns immediately. Otherwise, waits for up to timeout in second again. Target element already satisfies the condition. State options. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Here, right? What you can do is, let's say you're having trouble, right? You want, let's say in our case, right? Let's say this is our page, right? This is our page. Let me just reload this page, and let's close this part, right? Understand this, right? What is the flow of the page? I will fill the email, I will fill the password, and click on sign in, right? After clicking on sign in, I would want to do something. What will happen after sign in? It will navigate to the next page, and there would be some links or something which I would like to click, right? Now, what happens in certain cases, right? If you see this, let's say Akhil jda@gmail.com, and I'll say password here, and I put a sign in. I click on sign in. Once I click on it, this is the page which opens up, right? And if you would realize, there's a navigation which has happened. So again, there's a timeout, right, which should be there in place. But you did not reloaded the page yourself, right? You hit on a button, and now this page is opened up, right? Now, if you try to click on a button, right, once you try to do it, Playwright has an auto waiting mechanism to it, right, which it will wait for the element to be visible, to be stable, and all that. But what if I just log in and try to change the URL? Let's see this. I would like to go to the checkout screen directly, let's say, right? This is the cart page. I would like to go to the checkout screen, which is this one, right? This one. Let's see the flow very quickly. I'll take just 5 more minutes. Test.skip. Skip. Let's park it away. Control S. Test. Test case 27. Sync. Page. And this part, and we are going to say await page dot go to. Okay, we'll hit it, and okay, I have the code. I don't want to write it again and again. I think this one has the code. This part, right? Let's copy this part. Where is it? Yeah. Here, right? Wait for this. Let's write this code, right? So this is the code. I'm opening the URL. I'm filling the password field and clicking on submit, right? Now, once I click on submit, right, I would like to do what? I would like to directly go to the checkout page, right? I would like to go directly to the checkout page. So if I want to do it, I can do it through the navigation. Let's hit this. Let's take it up, and let's try to do it. So checkout page, right? Checkout page. What do you think will happen here? If I do this checkout thing, and I would like to, let's say, I would like to on the checkout screen, I would like to, let's say, fill this value over here, right? Let's say inspect, and I would like to fill the text. Email, what is it says? Let's collect this, Control F. It would be /input @ this is name field, name equals to this part and this, right? We're able to find, great. Let's collect it up. I'll say await page dot locator and fill the value, and we'll say dot fill, let's say Akhil, right? Let's do this. So all the auto wait mechanisms are in place. I'm not doing anything else. Action timeout, let me increase the timeout. I don't want it to fail because of this. And config also, I have set it to 30. Let's just make it 30 seconds, whatever it is. And let's run the test case. Let's see whether our test case will pass or fail. Let's try to understand the reason for it. This is to run it. Okay, this is taking time, no worries. Okay, come out of this. If I go to the test part, here is a play button now, and I should run it. Let's see things happening now. I have set the parameters of navigation on action. Might have an impact. Let's see. Okay, it is running the test case. It has opened up the browser. It will try to fill the value, sign in, and it failed. It failed, right? It failed. Why it failed? Why it failed? Let's see this, right? Navigating to waiting until load, right? Okay, let's see the report. It should open the report also. Did it open the report? Navigating to waiting until load, right? Waiting until load. Go to, right? How to open the report? Let's open the report. Did it open the report? No. This is test results. There's a terminal here. Let's say npx playwright show report. Will it show this test case? Let's see. Test case 27. If you see this, right, it failed here at this level. Okay, go to, right. It took 538 milliseconds for this to navigate, right, and it failed. So it is not bounded by that rule of thing, right, of what I should say. I mean, it is not bounded by that navigation timeout, right? It is not. What is happening here is, if you say, right, navigating to this, waiting until load, right? See, what I'm trying to tell you here is, it failed here, right? It failed here. Why it failed here? Your document, we are using a single page application, right? And if you see this, if I load this page, right? If I go to console and I check here, document dot ready state, right? You see, it shows complete, right? It shows complete. If I navigate to some other page, what it will show? Oh, yeah, it takes. Oh, yeah, it shows loading here, right? It shows loading here, right? It showed loading here when I was navigating this. If I click on this, it shows complete now. If I again click on this and I try to this, okay, I'm not able to click in the right state, but yeah, this is the value which is trying to check, right? Complete and all. What has happened over there, right? Again, what I'm trying to tell you here is that sometimes what happens is these navigations thing, right, which depends on that loading state to complete, right, does not give you the right picture for you to continue. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is try to understand the operation. I tried to click on the navigation. It was able to navigate it because this was the first time it was loading. So it said ready state to be complete. Once it was complete, then only it moved ahead. Try to do this. On this line, it would have waited for the auto waiting for the fill operations to complete. Once it was done, it would have filled the value. Similarly for the password thing and then for the click also, right? But after you made a click, right, the page changed, right? It changed from page 1, or let's say the URL 1 to some other URL 2, right? And here also again, right, there is some loading happening on the background on the document side. Maybe some inputs taken from the server, right? Some data is coming, right? Now, while it is doing so, right? While it is doing so, we should see, try to understand, right? You clicked on click submit, you right, which resulted into some operation on the browser, which also triggered what we should say, it triggered the URL change also, right, which would also result into receiving some input from the server. Okay, so there are two operations involved. One, something happening on the browser, and second, waiting for the things to come back from the browser, from the server to the browser, right? Now, what I'm trying to tell you here is that you might face these situations, right? You might face these situations, and for these situations, you might have to do something about it, right? And the default things which Playwright provides might not suffice your needs. Okay, so for all those cases, you would require to explicitly wait for something to happen. Like what? Like for me, what I would do is, I know that, see, my intention here was that it should hit this URL once my page has got stable. When I'm on that landing page of the home page, once I am there, I should hit this URL. Okay, I should hit this URL. But what happened here was, as soon as it made a click, right, it was made a click, it went ahead and tried to do this operation. But currently the browser is in transit to take some action, right, on that click part, right? But it was immediately fired, okay, which resulted into that saying that this kind of an error. So what is the ideal way? What is the ideal situation in this case? What should I do? What I should do is, I should wait for that home page to be loaded. And how can I do it? That is the fifth case which
Password
I was
something after doing the submit
right.
sign in.
Right. That is what I'm trying to tell about wait for. Okay. Now what I'll do is, I can use wait for URL or wait for some events to happen, right? On all the things, right? These things which we already know, right? What I wanted to know is, there is something called wait for selector also, which is at the page level. Okay, wait for selector, which is at the page level. There is something called wait for at the locator level, which we'll talk tomorrow. But let's talk about this wait for selector. Although I was not seeing in the documentation, I'm wondering why. Is it deprecated? Oh, it's deprecated. Okay, it's got deprecated. That's why. Okay, so if you see, right, there are methods which were existed on the plate side, which got deprecated earlier. But yeah, okay, fine. So we have only these, but fine, no worries, right? What we'll do is, wait for, what was the other one? What I'll use for wait for URL, right? I'll wait for URL. What you can do is, you can say await page dot wait for URL, and I would wait for the URL. An argument for URL was not provided, right? You can provide a URL, and you would like to wait until load, right? And let's give it a time. What I will do is, what is the URL which I was looking for? If I land up after logging, right, I land up on this page, right? I land up on this page. So I want this URL to be there. I'll provide this part here, wait for URL, and I can also provide some options here, right? Timeout and all that. I would want that timeout. Let's say I would say that timeout here should be 30, or let's say 10 seconds. It should wait for 10 seconds at max, and for what it should wait? It should wait until it's loaded. Yeah, please, Anand.
Still shouldn't wait for URL to have its own internal wait strategy as well. Yeah, I think
Which one? Sorry. URL. See, URL is what?
wait for
URL is
URL
navigation
to,
operation.
yes,
Navigation is a URL operation, right?
yeah.
But that gets only triggered when you use those methods, which are what? Go to,
Go
go
to
backward, go forward, right? Not on the click, right?
no, that's it fine. Like on click, and then the next statement that we are writing is page dot wait for URL. So the wait for URL method shouldn't be having its like the its own default timeout.
Okay, see,
Like
this,
we are
see,
basically wait.
when you said click, right? What was Playwright thinking? Playwright was thinking that you took a action, right, which is making a click. So when you took an action of click, at max, what timeout can be in the picture? Action timeouts, right?
Action plan.
Action timeouts, not the navigation timeouts, right? Not the navigation timeout. When does
Yes.
navigation timeouts kicks in? When you would have used those methods, which are go to, backward,
Okay,
forward,
so wait for
reload, and all
URL
that,
is
right?
not a navigation.
Wait for URL is a utility given to you, which you can use in such cases where you made a click on a button and it resulted into a navigation of a page, right? So you directly did not invoke the navigation, you clicked on some button which resulted into navigation, right? And since it resulted into a
Okay.
navigation, Playwright will not wait for will not does not know that it needs to wait, right? You will have to ask Playwright, okay, that go and
Okay.
wait for this, right? If and why I'm doing so, right? Because I wanted to hit the URL after it. If I just skip it now, if I just skip this part, right, and try to click on a button which is available on this page, right, Playwright will function very correctly, right? There is I will don't have to deal with anything. If my intention is that I clicked on submit and I will end up on this page and click on shop kits, then I'm totally fine with it. Playwright will not complain. It will work perfectly fine. Okay, let me show you. Let me just make this confusion being gone away, right? Span tag, you have text equals to, this is shop kits, I believe. What is this? Shop kits, K is small, right? So let's say if I do this, I do something like this. Await page dot locator, and I say this part, and I say dot click, right? If I do this part now, Playwright will function very correctly, right? Why? Because you made a click on submit, right? So all the auto waiting checks got kicks in and it works, right? After that, what happens? You're trying to work on this locator, right? Which is this one, and make a click. What will happen this time? Playwright will auto wait, right? It will auto wait for this, for all the checks for this element, right? What are those checks? It should be editable, it should be visible, and it should be editable, right? It should be enabled, right? And for doing all those things, right, it is keeping it will keep waiting, right, until the duration. Try to understand, as soon as you clicked on it, it resulted into a navigation, right, which will, it will have some time period for the page to load, right? And that is what this operation is helping to automate. But when you were doing the other thing, which was this part, right, which was hitting the URL directly, right, try to understand it. Just you made a click, right? As soon as it made a click, it tried to change this, right? But Playwright is complaining, right? Okay, no man, there is some other operation which is happening, and you're trying to do something apart from it, right? On that part, okay, which is where the problem is occurring. So what I'm suggesting is, in such cases where you might want to navigate to a different page, right, directly after this operation, for that you should have some wait time, right? Here it was automatically waiting for you, but by doing this, you are specifically saying to Playwright that, man, please wait until you see this URL being loaded in the DOM. Okay, and once you are done with it, so it means that I can go ahead and make a change in the URL again. Let's see, is it clear, Anand?
Yeah.
Right, so let's see this, right? Let me just show you the first operation. Let's see this, right? You will see that it will work, right? You will be able to click on shop kits. Let's do it very quickly. In the meanwhile, let me just see wait for method. Wait for
Tomorrow, what time we are planning for a session, Akhil?
Tomorrow, no, there is no class. We'll cut Monday only.
Yeah.
Okay. No class on Sunday. Let's enjoy our Sunday. Okay, so see, what is happening? Why it is not opening up? Now it got stuck. Array, yeah. Just a second. Let me just close this. In the page part, locate part is there. This is the wait for. Okay, this one, right? Let's just Control C. Let's, okay. This section, okay. So report project. Okay, now it is all good. Everything is working. Let's run it very quickly. Yeah, come on. I just wanted to prove a point, right? That what is the utility of these methods? Wait for URL, wait for load state, and all that. And there is one more method which is pending, which is, if you see, right, it was able to work, right? It passed, right, Anand? Right, everyone?
Yeah.
This time it did not throw an error. Why? Because it was able to click on shortcuts, okay, and it would have moved to the next page. But it was having a problem at this line. Why? Because, as I said, as I gave the explanation, right? When you made a click on it, right, there is something which the browser is doing, and in the same time you said go and hit this. This is where the problem occurred. Okay, this is where the problem occurred. There was a problem in firing this event itself. Okay, so to delay that, right, what we'll do is we'll wait for the, what will happen if you click on the submit. It will load up this URL, right? this URL, right? And what I'm saying is, I'm asking my Playwright to wait until this URL gets loaded, and there's a timeout for it you give, and you said that okay, wait until this get loaded, right? Where until you achieve the load state. And once it will be there, right, you will go and try to hit this code too, right? Again, it might work, it might not work. If it works, great. If it does not work, I'll have to use some other approach. Getting it? You are
Yes.
just it's like a hit and
Yeah.
like it's a hit and try, which can be a probable solution for your problem, right? Let's try to hit this. I should have used page.pause so that we could see it. Let's see.
But Akhil, in a real world scenario, like in a real scenario, we would have tried to, right after login, we would have tried
See here,
to
see this,
validate
right?
some.
This time it went to checkout, right? Everyone?
Yeah.
Right? So you saw the utility of wait for URL, right?
Yes.
Yeah, please, Anand, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that like in a real designing scenario, real world scenario, we would have been doing it in a way that once after we click the submit, and then maybe we will be asserting some other element on the next page, and then would have tried to go to the perform some other action. Here, even though even the wait for URL, I think is serving kind of the same
We are
purpose.
not
But
we are not putting any assertions right now, right? Assertions will have
yeah,
a
okay,
separate
right
class.
now we are not doing.
We are not
Okay.
putting any assertions here, right? Assertions will have a separate class. Okay. So there's a whole lot of things to learn about assertions also. Okay.
Okay.
So we are just talking about the wait out times, right? Okay. Now you saw this. This is one of the approach, right, which is available at the page level, right, for functioning this. There is one last method which you should be knowing, which is wait for. Okay, which is a wait for method, which is available at a locator level, which is the last thing for today. And let me just see this, right? If you see this, right? So let me just go to the page again, right? So wait. So we saw all these methods, right? Wait for URL. Okay. Earlier there was a method called wait for selector available at the page level. Okay, available at the page level. Where it went? Sorry, just a second. There was what happened here? Just a second, guys. Yeah, here. Right. So earlier there was a method called wait for selector, right? Now it has been deprecated, so let's not learn about it. There is a method. So otherwise, I was thinking to cover this, but since it's deprecated, so I'll leave it. Now the last part. There is a method called wait for at the locator level. Okay, at the locator level. How does it work? If you see this, where it went, wait for locator, wait for, right? Okay, this thing, right? You should use if you are looking like in this case, right? In our case, what was happening in our case? Let me close this. Right, we were hitting the submit button, and then we should have waited for this URL to load, and once it was loaded, I should have hit the next URL, right? I took the approach of waiting for the URL to be there, right? I could have used the other approach, which is to wait for for any of the element on this page to be visible. Once it is visible, it means that the page has been loaded, and I can now take some other actions on it, right? Let's like navigating to some other URL, right? So that is kind of an operation which is available at a locator level, right? At a locator level. Let's say I wanted to have this button visible on my screen, and once it is there, I am good enough to take some other actions, which is to go to some other URL, right? To some other URL, right? So what I'll do is there is a wait for method, right? Now wait for method works at a locator level. So what you will do is, if you go here, right? How you do it? First of all, you will write a locator for it. Let's say in our case, we'll go and try to write a locator for shopkits, which we already did. Let's go there. Shopkits, this one, right? So let's remove this click part. Again, you do not need await because locator does not give you any promise. So we'll say L1, right? L1 equals to this. Now, it will not do any action on the browser, right? But what I really want is I want to wait for this locator to be there on the UI, right? So I'm skipping this approach. What I will do is I'll come here and say L1 dot wait for. Okay, wait for. Now what is wait for working on? It is working on this locator, right? What does wait for do? Returns when the element specified by the locator satisfy the state option, right? State option. What is that state option? There are four state values which a locator can achieve. Okay, these are those. Okay, these are the four different states which a locator can be in, right? It can be either attached, it could be either detached, it could be visible, it could be hidden, right? Now, right, let's just have a overview of these methods. Let's do it here, right? So what I'm saying is every locator, right? Every locator, whatever locator you work on, right, can have some state, and there are four states available, right? One is attached, second is detached, let's say detached, third is I think visible, and fourth is hidden, right? Visible and hidden, right? So let's write visible, and the fourth is hidden. Okay, now whenever you got, let's say, right, you hit on the click button, right? You hit on the click button. As soon as you hit on the submit button, right, it would have now there is some JavaScript happening in the background of the browser. It would have tried to reload that JavaScript code into the browser, and then because of that thing, right, the HTML DOM would have been reconfigured, and it is now rendering, right? It is now rendering. Now, while the browser is doing all of this, right, there is some delay, right, which might be happening, right? There is some delay time, and during that time, right, that this button is not available on the DOM yet, right? And once that is the case, right, we would say that this element is in a detached state. Okay, it has not been loaded on the DOM. Okay, it has not been loaded. Wait for element to not to be present in DOM, right? Detached state, which is it is not available on the DOM. If you want this to be available on the DOM, right, it means that it has been attached on the DOM, and now you could, if you open the HTML page of, if you open if you see the HTML thing, right, of that page, you would find the tag for it in the HTML, right? If that is the case, you mean you are in the attached state. Okay, wait for element to be present in the DOM. If it is not present, it means that you are in the detached state. Okay, visible. So what we say is, if you talk about the sequence, it would be like this. Your every locator, right, first go from detached state, then it goes to the attached state. It means it is available on the DOM, right? It is available in the HTML page, and it has been converted into an HTML DOM, right? So it's a part of HTML DOM. So it is available here. If it is that the case, attached is good enough, right? But being available on the DOM does not mean it is visible on the screen. Okay, because then there is some CSS properties being applied which will have that bounding box properties like height and width, right, and making sure that it is not disabled by someone, right? So the visibility part, and this is what you want if you want to click on it, right? If it is not visible, you cannot make a click. So what you will do is, after you are attached, right, you can attain the visibility as visible, right? For visible, wait for element to have known empty bounding box, right, and no visibility hidden, right? So every locator achieve this, right? Right. And third thing, or right, so these are the possible transitions, right? Detached to attached, and then from attached to visible. But right, but something what can happen is, maybe because of the logic of the application, someone would have tried to hidden it, and for making it hidden, what we do, we just say we can set this opacity to 0. Sorry, not opacity to 0. It is disabled. It is visibility part. For hidden part, right, we set visibility to be hidden, right? Right, or have an empty bounding box. Okay, so this is a fourth possibility of the state of the locator, right? For our case, right, what we would have wanted, right, we would have wanted that if my shopkits is button is visible on the screen, I am good enough to take an action, right? So what I will do is, I will go to my code, page.locator. So I've created a L1. I'm saying wait for, and I will wait for this to have the state as options. I have need to give options here. So let's this here, and okay, what was the property I have to give? State, right? State, and the value which I will give is, let's say, visible, right? And if I want, right, I can give a timeout for it. Let's say 5 seconds. Okay, and if you see, and I will have to put a wait to it. Wait for it returns me a promise, right? So now, if you would see, this will also work. Let's run this, and that's the end of our class. Let's see whether it works or not. So this will give enough time to our script to wait for this button to be available and visible on the screen. And if it is so, it means that I can take further action, which is to navigate to the other to some other page. You see, right? It worked. Okay. So these are the different waiting strategies which Playwright provides you, and you should be aware about all this, right? I know that has been a very long session. It is almost like 3 hours now, but I hope right you understood about everything about the waiting strategies within Playwright. I'm sorry for the talk.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, but please go back and try to revise this. We have Sunday, right? But again, if you would ask me with Playwright, with WebDriver.io, you do not have to think about waiting strategies a lot because it takes care of all of this automatically using AutoWaiting. But wherever those cases needs to be refined or you need to pitch in to do something, now you know all the possible ways to do it. Okay. We have not talked about assertions. We'll talk about it once we start discussing. On Monday, we'll discuss about different elements to work with, like let's say drop-down web tables, shadow DOMs, and all that, right? So that's a discussion which we have to start. Otherwise, apart from it, from the library side of Playwright, we are done. We are almost done. There are only slight things pending, which is assertions, screenshots, maybe logging, something else. Very small things, right? But now our discussion would be more on like handling different types of elements on the page. That's it. Okay, right. Let me stop. So there is nothing more to cover from my side for today. Okay.
Thank you for the session.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.